one of the best, draftcountdown.com, the president, Scott Wright. He joins us now with a look at the NFL Combine, 97.3 ESPN on the Boardwalk on the hotline. Scott, welcome back. Draft season, pal. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Good to be back.
Yeah, man. We know this draft very interesting. We got the Kyler Murray story at the top. We've got, Bosa. We got some interesting teams at the top, some high-profile teams, Giants, Raiders. So it should be fun. I'll start with Armstead, running back, Temple, 4.46, a guy that maybe he had a good Senior Bowl, was probably maybe like a third-day pick, maybe an undrafted guy. Did he do anything for his stock?
That 4.45 really surprised me. I had him estimated as kind of a mid 4.5 guy, and honestly, I wouldn't be as surprised if he was around that 4.6 mark. So for him to run as well as he did, definitely helps him. And as you said, he was already in the draftable range, so it's just going to push him up further. I still think he's a day 3 pick, and I'm a little leery of that speed. I wonder if it's manufactured and if he brings that over to the field. I certainly didn't see that on the tape or down at the Senior Bowl, but. Like I said, he was a draftable guy beforehand. I wouldn't be shocked. Maybe he goes as early as maybe the 5th round now.
Okay, what did we learn at the Combine about a guy like Murray now? I know so much of it was about how tall he was going to be, but was just getting his height enough for you to say this guy's going to go number 1?
I personally am still leery. I've been doing this so long that, 15 years ago, a guy like Kyler Murray would have been written off as a day 3 pick, and somebody would have said, well, maybe we can use him on gadget plays or as a return specialist. It's a brave new world where a 5'10 quarterback not only can go number 1 overall, but probably is going to go number 1 overall. And a lot of focus was on that height, and he came in at 5'10 and an eighth, which is not ideal, but it's just less. It's like a half an inch shorter than Russell Wilson, so not a huge problem. And then the biggest thing for me was I want to see the bulk because he just looks so slight on film. And for a guy who runs the ball as much as he does, I just don't know how he's going to hold up physically. And he was up to 207 pounds. So and he was listed at 195, so he added a dozen pounds. And it'll be interesting to track that through this process now at his pro day. Is he still 207 or does he cut back down? So that's something that there's watching. But then the other measurement too, the hands, 9.5-inch hands. So for a small guy, he's got pretty big hands. For comparison, Drew Lock from Missouri, who's almost 6'4", 230 pounds, 9-inch hands. So I think it alleviated some of those concerns that he wasn't ridiculously small. And everything I hear coming out of Indy is that Kyler Murray is going to be the number 1 pick, whether it's to the Arizona Cardinals or someone else trading up.
Scott Wright, draftcountdown.com. A couple key points from the Combine. Obviously, this one's interesting because Montez Sweat, I think you brought him up the last time you were on. I've seen mock drafts with the Eagles landing him in the 25 spot, wherever they're drafting Mississippi State. I assume that he will not be in that range any longer, running a 4.40.
You can officially put that one to bed.
Is this your Mike Mamula, or is this legit?
No, it's legit. He was a good player already. A lot of people already had him in the middle of the first round before he ran like he did. And we knew he was going to work out well. We could see that on tape. He's a phenomenal athlete and was one of the stars of the Senior Bowl week, too. So not only does he work out like an amazing specimen, but he carries that over to the field. I think there's some character concerns there that might cloud Sweat a little bit, but I would early as maybe 8 to the Detroit Lions, and I think his floor is probably the Seahawks at I think they're 21, and I think he's going to go somewhere in that top half of the first round. But just an incredible specimen. When you have a guy who's 260 pounds running 4.4, that's special.
DK Metcalf, where was he? Where is he now?
Speaking of special, DK Metcalf,
4.340.
And the expectations were borderline unrealistic, and he lived up to them with his workout. And for anybody who saw that viral picture of him that went out on social media, a week before the Combine, once again, I've been doing this for a while, and I saw that picture, and I thought it was fake. I thought it was Photoshopped. I had to dig into it to make sure it was an actual real picture. And he's just incredible to the point where maybe too muscular. I think I saw that there was talk that he has only 1.9% body fat, and that's a concern. You want to have a little fat on your body to protect yourself for some of that punishment and hits, and you wonder if he's going to be more susceptible to injuries because of that. And also not very agile. Turned in a terrible 3-cone drill time, which it stands to reason. When you're that bulked up, it's tough to change direction quickly, but Boy, those are some concerns, but there's a lot to like. 6'3.5", 230, 35-inch arms, ran a 4.33, 27 reps on the bench press. I mean, talk about a workout warrior, and I think he could go in the top 10 overall. Maybe as early as 4 to the Oakland Raiders. I think that would be a huge stretch to take him number 4 overall, but the Raiders definitely need help at that position. John Gruden, I'm sure, can think of a lot of good ways to use a player like that in the passing attack. And you look at what the Raiders did last year, they put a clear priority on physical specimens. They would ignore some red flags. They wanted guys who were freakish athletes. So I think DK Metcalf would make a lot of sense for the Raiders. Maybe if they move down a little bit, maybe the Buffalo Bills. But he's going in the first round now. But there's a lot of risk there with DK Metcalf. But I think he clearly established himself as the number 1 receiver in this draft. And now it's just a matter of how early he goes. And I wouldn't be shocked if it was the top 10. But I think it's going to be a little later. I think it's going to be somewhere in that maybe 15 to 25 range.
Scott, it's really interesting to see how the combine has played out over time. I mean, it's a huge deal now, as you know, we're discussing here with you today, and the events and everything that they have to put these players through. What's the most overrated thing that takes place in the combine and that gets discussed in the media, and the most underrated as far as what teams look at and how we break down hand size and cone drills and everything else?
Well, and for the most part, the 40-yard dash is overrated. And there are certain players in certain positions where it is important. But by and large, and it's not that it's even unimportant, it's just that we kind of have an idea going in what most of these guys are going to run. There's very few surprises where there's a huge aberration, whether a guy's way faster or way slower than anticipated. So a lot of focus on the 40-yard dash. And then underrated, I think some of the lesser drills. Like, for example, the short shuttle, which a lot of people aren't paying a whole lot of attention to, but Andre Dillard from Washington State, the offensive lineman, put up a 4.40 short shuttle time. And if you look at the recent history, the offensive lineman that did that drill that fast, it's an outstanding track record. It's like 18 for 19 or something. So things like that can be significant. And then the thing I always say too is all the focus is on the field stuff, where the guys 40-yard dashes, the bench presses, all that stuff. But ultimately, the stuff that happens behind the scenes is every bit as important, and usually more so, whether it's the medical checks, whether it's the interviews with teams, because a lot of times for these teams, this is their first exposure to these players, and these decision makers, it's their first opportunity to sit down with them and decide if they want them on their team. So it's hugely important what goes on behind the scenes.
We all know Murray. A lot of people like him, but this quarterback class, probably not great. You and I have been talking for years about the draft. Where do you kind of look at this quarterback class in relation to some of the last couple of years? It had some pretty big names, you know, in the recent past.
Yeah, and Kyler Murray is just kind of a wild card. It's kind of hard to put him into perspective. But my number 1 quarterback in his class is Dwayne Haskins from Ohio State. And I think most feel he's going to be a top 10 overall pick. But if he were in last year's draft, he probably would have been my 4th quarterback. I think I would have had him behind Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, and probably Josh Allen. And that's not to take anything away from Dwayne Haskins. He's a very talented player, but not a great class. And I think some of these signal callers are going to get pushed up a little earlier than maybe they should. And I think there's a legitimate chance we could see 4 quarterbacks in the top half of the first round, maybe 3 in the top 10 overall. So I think teams have realized that if we don't have a quarterback, we're not going anywhere. So, and they realize once we identify the guy we want, we have to get aggressive and go get him. And to me, that's the storyline of this draft. I think we're going to see some moves at the top. I think we're going to see at least 1, maybe 2 trades in the top 5 with teams coming up for quarterbacks. And whether it's the Giants or the Jaguars inside the top 10, or how about teams outside the top 10, whether it's the Dolphins, the Redskins, maybe even the Broncos at number 10. So there's going to be some jockeying at the top of this draft for these quarterbacks, but it's very much a case of beauty and eye of the beholder. I don't think there's going to be a consensus pecking order with these quarterbacks.
For more on the draft and the combine, check out draftcountdown.com. Scott Wright, 52 days, 1 hour, 12 minutes until the NFL draft, and we will check in with Scott throughout this draft process as we do yearly here. Always enjoy his insight as the draft is on its way. 52 days away, pal. We'll talk soon.
TikTok. Thanks, guys.